Hey there, Rappies. Rapper9198 here, and welcome to another edition of Ryan's The Reading. Today I'll be reading Chapter 10 of Imprints, titled Unexpected. So, once again, a little bit of a recap from the previous chapter. It was another story from Patrick's perspective, how he and Ted and their families would go up to their cabin, and Patrick would always see how Ted would just treat everybody with kindness and just say some kind words to them, and how Ted was teaching his son, or how Patrick is teaching his son Joshua to do the same thing. And it was about how Joshua was learning how he was 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old, and then he saw a veteran and went up to him and said, "Thank you for your service." And then the veteran got all emotional and said, "Thank you, young man," and was taken aback at a young man telling him that. And it's how little acts of kindness like that can have a very big impact on somebody's life. So now we go into chapter 10, Unexpected. And then here's a quote from John Locke. "There is frequently more to be learned from the unexpected questions of a child than the discourses of men." All right, here we go. Life is an amalgamation of the unplanned and the spontaneous and monotonous and the exciting things we enjoy, and others we would rather not experience. From the careers we pursue to the relationships we cultivate, we are all bound to face every emotion on the spectrum over the course of our lives. The highs and lows of marriage, the joys and pains of parenting, the heartbreak of saying goodbye to loved ones gone too soon. These and many other experiences shape us. They give us the pieces that make us. They are a part of our identity. The two of us are both fathers, and we have been blessed with some amazing kids and are married to incredible women. But our journeys of fatherhood and marriage aren't always amazing or incredible. Life is filled with work, struggles, moments of compromise, and a whole lot of learning along the way. It is within the collection of life's lessons, pleasant and unpleasant, that we discover who we are and who we should be. Our past life experiences influence our future decisions, help us gain a deeper understanding of the people we encounter, and sometimes offer us much needed new perspectives. Those experiences often come from unlikely places, like a complete stranger or a friend's child. Just like life, children are a mixture of the unplanned and spontaneous offering, both monotonous and the exciting, but rarely in equal parts. They are constantly catching us off guard with untimely filled diapers, surprise spills, unfiltered public comments about strangers' clothing choices or body odor, or the new four-letter word they learned on the playground, and moments of startling wisdom. A lesson may be waiting for us in the words they say, or the things they do, or in the people they meet. Small groups are a common part of many church environments. Different churches call them by different names: life groups, cell groups, or more creative names like change makers or soul squads. But regardless of what you call them, these regular gatherings all operate with the same basic principles, providing a space to discuss life, seek a better understanding of an individual's role in the world, try to understand God and what it means to love others, and offer one another support and accountability through the different stages and trials of life. Some are a mixture of varying age groups, a collection of mentors and mentees, while others are made up of people in the same stage of life, like newlyweds or young parents. The most common challenge for couples with young children is what to do with their kiddos one night a week while they attend small groups. Hiring babysitters on a weekly basis gets expensive. Marcus and Jill were dealing with this exact situation. With 2 young children, one still in diapers, they and several other families struggled to meet on a regular basis until one member of their small group offered up their home for the weekly meetings and their bonus room as a place for the children to play while the adults met. Each week, one couple took a turn supervising the group of 3 to 8-year-olds, while the rest of the parents met downstairs. Though they discussed a variety of topics, the challenges and joys of parenting were the ones most frequently addressed. From discipline styles to bedtime routines to work/home life balance, the couples explored what others were doing, passed around tips, and offered support. After a few months of meeting, Jill brought up the topic of service and different ways the group could actively pursue helping others in their community. She wanted to make sure the group did more than talk about the good they do. She wanted to show their children what it means to love others. Everyone agreed that instilling a desire to serve at an early age was paramount. Over the course of several years, each family participated in a variety of service projects, feeding the homeless at a local shelter, collecting blankets and clothing for newly arriving refugee families, making sure kids in undeserved communities had food and warm coats. The children were always involved, but after a few years together, the parents decided they wanted the kids to do more than be a part of serving. They wanted the children to take the reins. After the topic was raised, the kids discussed different ideas. Some were as grand as building an orphanage or ending world hunger, but the kiddos finally agreed on something they could dig into right away. They wanted to give Valentines to people who might not otherwise receive them. One of the kids' grandparents had recently passed away in a retirement home, so delivering Valentines to a group of men and women at the same facility seemed a logical place to start. When one of the parents asked Jill's daughter, "Why Valentines?" the young girl replied, "People need to know they are loved." The plan was made and time was set aside, but the kids wanted to do more than simply deliver the Valentines. They wanted to make them. For 2 weeks, rather than the adults meeting as couples, everyone met together as families. Stacks of paper with every color of the rainbow, glue, glitter, stickers, stamps, and scissors populated tables, countertops, and every space on the kitchen floor. Creations of all kinds came to life as imaginations ran wild. It was amazing to see how many Valentines 8 kids could make. One of the parents called the retirement home inquiring about the number of residents. 47 men and women lived at the facility. 47 Valentines were made. When the day came to make the delivery, the families all loaded up in their cars and headed to the retirement home. Each child seemed to vibrate with excitement as they talked about sharing what they had made with their soon-to-be friends. Everyone checked in at the front desk, where the staff was expecting them, and after a quick tour of the common room and dining hall, one of the workers escorted the families into a main hallway. The walls were lined with doors, each one offering admittance to the variety of apartments. A few housed elderly couples, but most were the residences of widows or widowers. Marcus and Jill walked with their daughter and son to one of the apartments, knocked on the open door, and were invited in. The eyes of a white-haired woman in her late 80s lit up as she said, Well, what do we have here?" "Valentines," both kids announced with joy. The scene was the same in every room. The residents gratefully received the attention from wide-eyed, innocent boys and girls wanting nothing more than to share their creations of love. The deliveries continued till just a few rooms remained. Jill and Marcus's daughter walked ahead of them down the corridor with her last Valentine in her hands. A red piece of paper with a white heart and the words, "Happy Valentine's Day, someone loves you," written in pink marker and covered in glitter. The young girl had become quite comfortable since they had first arrived. Without hesitation, she walked into one of the remaining apartments ahead of her parents without knocking and announced her presence with a loud and excited, "Happy Valentine's Day! This gift is for you." The only person in the room was a gray-haired man sitting in a recliner reading a newspaper. He turned at the high-pitched declaration and stared at the girl who had entered his room uninvited. Marcus caught up with his daughter and apologized for the intrusion. But the man waved away the apology. A warm smile spread across his face, and he asked, "And who might you be?" "I'm your Valentine," the little girl declared, bouncing with too much excitement to contain. The man chuckled and said, "Is that so?" The girl nodded. Eyeing the car in her hands, the man continued, "Well, my Valentine, my name is Richard." "Hi, Richard," said the girl as she held out the Valentine. Wrinkled, veiny hands reached out to accept the gift. Holding the card up, Richard inspected it and said, "Well, this is unexpected. Did you make this?" The little girl nodded excitedly. "You know, it has been a long time since I've received a Valentine like this," Richard continued. "The people here make sure we're not forgotten, but what you have here is something you've made. This is very different than a card you can buy at the store." Setting the card down in his lap, Richard began tracing the letters with his finger. "Do you like it?" the girl asked. Nodding his head, but keeping his eyes on the card, Richard said, "I do. I like it very much." He looked up at his new friend and asked, "Do you know who used to make me Valentine's Day cards every year?" "No." The smile on Richard's face grew even wider. "My wife. She loved to make little things like this." Head tilted and eyes squinting, the girl asked, "Why doesn't she anymore?" She died a long time ago. Oh. A somber quiet took over the room for a few moments until Richard looked up at Marcus and Jill. He stared Jill in the eyes, unblinking, for a few seconds before turning to Marcus and doing the same. With a nod of his head, he said, "Thank you." Turning back to Jill, he continued, "Both of you." "For what? She made it," Marcus said with a grin. "Yes, she did, but you are making her into something beautiful. Don't stop doing what you're doing. The world needs unexpected acts of love." Turning back to the young girl, Richard reached for her hand. Holding her small fingers gently, he smiled and said, "And thank you, my Valentine." Defining moments can hit us without warning. Whether they are filled with joy or loss, they give us something to work with, new pieces to our puzzle, new material with which to build our lives. Jill and Marcus were gifted one of those defining moments because of the desire to give heartfelt gifts. The children in their small group created an opportunity for something unexpected. Simple things like Valentine's are often not so simple. A little girl's wide-eyed love for others gave Richard a beautiful gift, but Marcus and Jill received something even greater. The wisdom in the words, "The world needs unexpected acts of love." Relationships without expectations aren't realistic. And some expectations aren't bad. Our kids expect us to feed them, but this doesn't make our doing so any less loving. However, there is a different kind of power that resides in the unexpected. We are called to love without conditions, without expecting anything in return. A challenging task when we are surrounded by our culture's twisted rules of engagement. Give to get and love to be loved. But if we choose not to grow up completely, to maintain a little bit of that childhood wonder, if we decide to not conform to society's ideas of love and transactional relationships, people will have the opportunity to experience love that is real, love that is pure. We all have something to give: time and money, compassion and grace, love and mercy, or maybe a Valentine. Give them freely, without expectation, and you will learn a thing or two along the way. All right, and that concludes chapter 10, actually. So again, I just love that, just love these stories and just what we can learn from them as well. It's not just, Marcus and Jill and their daughter, but it's a good message for everybody there. Yeah. And again, I love these messages on the pages there, what really sticks out. It is within the collection of life's lessons, pleasant and unpleasant, that we discover who we are and who we should be. And then people need to know they are loved. And then also, if we choose to not grow up completely, to maintain a little bit of that childhood wonder, if we decide to not conform to society's idea of and transactional relationships, people will have the opportunity to experience love that is real and love that is pure. So yeah, those are really the main messages of that chapter there. And again, I couldn't have said any of that better myself. And again, I really hope everybody takes these messages to heart. And again, know that somebody out there, there is somebody who does care and knows it and appreciates and values you for all that you do, whatever work you do. All work is honorable work, as I've said before too. And my heart goes out to everybody. And also, I hope and I don't mean to sound selfish here, but also I hope, and I've been expressed, people have expressed appreciation and value for me at work too, but I also want to hopefully know that I'm appreciated on here for making these videos, because I believe I'm doing this for a reason. I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe these videos I'm making for a reason. And I know I am, but I hope other people can really receive them through me. Yeah, that's what I would love to have happen on here. And I am so proud. I'm just doing what I can on my part, but I hope it is really spread out far. I like these messages to be spread out into the world. So, alrighty. Well, thank you, Rappies, again very much. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned next time for Chapter 11, A Single Moment. Alright, well, thank you, Rappies, again very much. Love you all to death, and God bless. I'll see you next time.